1:42 p.m., Thursday. Lockdown announcement. The announcement came during 7th period. Attention students and faculty. This is a lockdown. This is not a drill. I repeat, this is not a drill. Everything stopped. Mrs. Holloway's dry erase marker squeaked to a halt on the whiteboard. She turned to the class, her eyes wide behind her thick-rimmed glasses. For a moment, no one moved. You could almost hear the collective heartbeat of room 207. 32 juniors, all frozen mid-lecture, eyes darting toward each other, silently asking, "Is this real?" Mrs. Holloway was the first to act. "Everyone to the back," she whispered harshly, moving quickly toward the door, locking it with trembling fingers. "Move now!" We obeyed. Chairs scraped. Someone knocked over a water bottle. We filed into the corner behind the teacher's desk, crouching in rows. The blinds were drawn. Lights off. It was dim, the only light a faint gray bleed from beneath the door. The classroom fell into an eerie silence, that kind that weighs heavy, like fog in the lungs. 2 p.m. Uncertainty. 10 minutes passed, then 20. Phones began vibrating. Not all at once, just sporadically, like pebbles thrown at a tin roof. A few people checked them secretly, shielding the screens with their hoodies. Maya, sitting beside me, legs hugged to her chest, leaned in. 3 students posted on Snapchat. They say someone's in the building, with a gun. I swallowed. How do they know? They heard shots from the gym wing. I turned to look at Mrs. Holloway, but she was seated cross-legged in front of the door, holding her phone to her chest, jaw clenched tight. Her lips moved. She was praying. 2:16 p.m. First noise. It started with footsteps. Slow, deliberate, heavy, from the hallway. Everyone in room 207 stiffened. The sound was distant but unmistakable. One step, then another, getting closer. It wasn't a teacher, you could tell. Something about the rhythm, too slow, too intentional. Then a sound that didn't make sense. A dragging noise, like a wet duffel bag being pulled across tile, accompanied by shallow breathing, loud, wheezy breathing, like a broken accordion being forced open and shut. The steps stopped. Right outside our door. I saw Mrs. Holloway's shoulders stiffen. The breathing was just on the other side. Something bumped the door. A soft thud. Then, scratching. Deliberate, slow dragging of fingernails on metal. Or claws. Everyone was frozen. And then it was gone. Just like that. No more breathing, no more scratching, just silence again. I didn't breathe for at least a full minute. 2:35 p.m. A text from the dead. Someone's phone buzzed in the quiet, loud in the stillness, then a whisper. "Oh my God." It was Jamie, 2 rows ahead of me. She was pale, staring at her screen like it had cursed her. I edged closer. "What?" She showed me the phone. The message read, "Help. I'm in the science hall closet. Please. I think he's still here. I can't move. I think I'm dying." It was from Taylor Givens. Taylor had last been seen during 5th period. Her friend had posted a blurry video of her dancing in the hallway between classes. That post had gone up at 12:53 p.m. "I thought she was in the band wing," I whispered. "She has chem last period." "That's near the gym," Jamie replied, her voice shaking. "Did you tell Mrs. Holloway?" She nodded. "She said not to respond. She doesn't want to risk her phone making noise." Smart and terrifying. 3 p.m. Screams. For nearly half an hour, there was silence again. Long, dragging minutes where nothing moved but the second hand on the clock. Then, just as I was convincing myself that we were overreacting, the scream came. It was long, drawn out, raw with horror. Male, maybe a student. It echoed through the halls like it was bouncing off concrete walls in a parking garage. We all jumped. A few kids sobbed silently. I saw someone bite their own sleeve to keep from screaming. The scream cut off abruptly, and in its place, the dragging noise again, closer this time. 3:12 p.m., the knock ummed. A single solid knock came at the classroom door. Not loud, not frantic, just one knock, followed by a pause. Then, knock, 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 11 times. Then silence. And then from the hallway, a voice, a boy's voice, high school age. "Let me in, please, please, let me in. He's coming." Another pause, then again, frantic this time. "Please. Oh my God, he's coming. Please let me." Slam. The sound of something hard hitting flesh. The voice stopped mid-plea, and then the dragging began again. This time, it passed our door. The breathing louder, like someone trying to inhale an entire room. It moved on, faded away. And still, Mrs. Holloway didn't move. 3:25 p.m. The sound of wet. You know the sound water makes when it hits tile? Not a splash, more like a slap. We heard that from somewhere nearby. Then another one. The knock came from the supply closet at the back of room 207. 3 slow, deliberate taps. Everyone froze. Eyes widened. A couple of kids turned their heads sharply, looking behind them at the old gray metal door where we kept extra dry erase markers and leftover history textbooks. That door hadn't made a sound all day. We thought it had been empty. Mrs. Holloway raised a hand, silently motioned for everyone to stay still. We waited. Another knock. Then a voice. Quiet, raspy, strangled. "Mrs. Holloway, it's me, it's Caitlin." The name hit like an ice pick. Caitlin Yu had been absent today. I remembered that distinctly because she was my lab partner in biology, and I had to do the dissecting alone. But there was her voice, whispering from inside the closet. I was late. I came in after the bell. I saw the lockdown light and I hid in here. Please let me out. Please. Mrs. Holloway stood slowly, walked toward the closet, her keys trembling in her hand. She paused. "Caitlin?" she whispered. A pause. "Yes," the voice croaked. Mrs. Holloway moved her hand toward the knob. "No," I said, too loudly. She stopped and looked at me. I swallowed. "Ask her what our mascot is." Mrs. Holloway turned back to the door. "What is our school's mascot?" Another pause. A long one. Then, "A tiger." It wasn't. We were the Red Hawks. Mrs. Holloway backed away, fast. The voice changed immediately, from whisper to a growl. Not a human one. The knocking became pounding, a violent metallic boom, boom, boom shaking the entire back wall of the classroom. Something was trying to get out. Then silence again. 3:31 p.m. The group text. Someone had the idea to start a group text. It was Jamie. She created one with all of us in room 207, including Mrs. Holloway. No one spoke aloud anymore. We communicated through trembling thumbs. Jamie. "Is everyone okay, Maya? What was in the closet?" Connor. "That wasn't Caitlin. I know her voice. That was not her." Mrs. H. "Do not speak. Do not respond to sounds. Do not move unless I say so. Keep phones on silent." People started sharing what they'd heard or seen. Derek. "I saw something out the window. Tall, wearing a hoodie, but not walking right. More like limping." Olivia. "There's someone in the hall crying, like actually sobbing." Connor. "It's a trap, Mrs. H. If you see or hear anything, tell me in this thread only." Maya. "What if it's not a person?" No one responded to that, but we were all thinking it. 3:39 p.m., lights flicker. The fluorescent lights above us flickered once, then again, then off. Total darkness. The emergency lights in the hallway glowed dimly under the door, sickly red, like blood caught in a fog. Something thumped overhead, on the ceiling. Footsteps, too fast, skittering like a centipede, not walking like a person. We stared up, trying to follow the sound. It moved over us, then toward the left, then gone. Everyone was shivering. I felt Maya's nails dig into my arm. She whispered, "What the hell is happening?" I didn't answer, because I didn't know anymore. 3:50 p.m., the fire alarm went off. Not like a drill, no warning, no stuttered test tones, just sudden ear-shattering wails and flashing strobe lights. Half the room jumped. A few kids screamed before clamping their hands over their mouths. Mrs. Holloway waved her arms. "Stay down, stay still." We stayed. But the alarm kept going. And in the middle of that cacophony, we heard the thing again. Walking past our door, dragging something wet. It stopped at our room. Then, something slid beneath the door. A piece of paper. Jamie, nearest to it, picked it up with shaking hands. It said, "One of you already let me in?" Everyone's heart stopped. Then Jamie flipped the paper over. On the back, written in what looked like red marker, but smelled like iron. Guess who? 4 p.m., a missing student. We counted. Only 31 of us, not 32. One person was missing. Connor, but we all saw him before. He was here. I'd even seen his messages in the group chat. Connor, that wasn't Caitlin. I know her voice. That was not her. But when Mrs. Holloway scrolled through the text thread again, that message was gone. No message from Connor. No entry saying he'd joined. No sign he'd ever been there. Then someone noticed something worse. Connor's backpack was still there, by the desk. Still zipped. Still upright. But Connor was gone. 4 p.m., Connor's vanishing. No one had seen Connor leave. No one heard a whisper. No movement. No scream. Just gone. We sat in stunned silence, our bodies pressed tighter against the far wall of room 207 like that could save us. I stared at his backpack. Still zipped, still upright, the top flap sagging like it knew its owner wouldn't return. Jamie texted the group, "Jamie, how the hell does someone vanish in a locked classroom?" Olivia, what if he wasn't one of us to begin with, Maya? He was. I swear to God he was. Mrs. Holloway walked slowly to the backpack. Kneeling, she opened it. Inside, a phone. She turned it on. The lock screen photo showed Connor's face, eyes wide in a goofy expression, tongue out, peace signs held high. But when she tapped the screen, no texts appeared. No history. No apps. Just a blank phone. Then the battery died in her hand. 4:07 p.m., the breathing returns. The sound returned from the hallway. The breathing. The awful, ragged, wet wheezing like lungs full of phlegm and rot. It came closer. Stopped again right outside room 207. And then, speaking. But not words. Impressions. It sounded like speech. The same cadence. But the sounds were all wrong. Guttural, slurred. Like a radio tuned just off the station. Then a single clear word. Alone. Drawn out. Sticky. Ah, lone. It moved on. We waited in total, soul-chilling silence. Mrs. Holloway turned to us, texted the group. Mrs. H. We may need to make a plan to escape. Stay quiet. We'll wait for a signal. Maya. What signal? Mrs. H. The all clear from administration or the police. Jamie. What if they never come? 4:12 p.m. The announcement. That's when the intercom crackled. Everyone froze. And then, A voice. "This is Principal Carter, all clear. The threat has been neutralized. Teachers may now escort students to the nearest exits. Repeat, all clear. The threat has been neutralized." There was silence for a beat, then confusion. Mrs. Holloway stared at the speaker on the wall. She whispered, "That's not his voice." We all agreed. We'd heard Principal Carter speak 100 times. That voice? It had a metallic warble to it, too slow. Words spaced out weirdly, like something learning to imitate speech. Then the voice repeated, "All clear, you may leave now." Over and over. Same pitch, same rhythm, exactly the same. Like a sound file on loop, no one moved. 4:15 p.m., Olivia loses it. "I can't do this anymore," Olivia whispered. "We have to go." "No," Mrs. Holloway said, firm. "That's not the all clear." But Olivia had already stood. Quietly, carefully, she moved to the door. "Olivia!" someone hissed. She ignored them. Hand shaking, she unlocked it. Click. Everyone watched in horror as she slowly cracked the door open. Nothing. Just the hallway, painted in red emergency lights and shadows. "I don't see anything," she whispered. Then, from above, a shape dropped onto her. Something long, pale, gaunt, fingers like knives. It pulled her up. Not sideways, not down, upper, straight into the darkness above the ceiling tiles. Her scream lasted half a second before it was cut off. The door slammed shut by itself. We were screaming silently now. Every one of us. Mrs. Holloway relocked the door. That was the last time we saw Olivia. 4:18 p.m., the countdown. Then the intercom came to life again. The same warbling voice, but now it was counting. Backwards. 10, 9, 8. Mrs. Holloway turned to us, eyes wide. "It's not real. Don't move. Stay put." 7, 6, 5. Everyone was hyperventilating. Maya texted, "Maya, what happens when it gets to 0? 4, 3. Jamie, "I think we die." 2. Mrs. H, "Stay still." 1. Silence. Then the ceiling above the classroom groaned. Tiles cracked. Something massive moved up there. Then the closet door burst open. 4:20 p.m. The closet opens. From the darkness of the closet, something slithered out. Not walked, slithered. We saw it only as a shadow, long, hunched, with legs that bent the wrong way. Its fingers scraped the tile, leaving faint scratches in the dust. It turned its head toward us. No eyes, just skin. It sniffed the air. Then it spoke. Our names, one at a time. Jamie, Maya, Tyler, Derek. One by one, then it stopped and said a name none of us recognized. Elaine. We waited, and then Jamie whispered, "Elaine was the girl who went missing last year." I remember that. Elaine disappeared during a late detention. They never found her body, and this thing, whatever it was, knew her name. 4:23 p.m. A ripping sound. The thing slid back into the closet, but not before dragging something behind it. Something squirming, another student. We realized it was Derek. He was gone before we could stop it. One moment he was beside us, the next, just a scuff mark where his shoe had been. 4:30 p.m. Radio static. A sound crackled through the intercom. Not the voice this time, just static. Then a faint, real voice. "Room 207, police entering. Hold your position." It was choppy, distant, but real. Mrs. Holloway texted, "Mrs. H, that's them. Real code, real radio." Maya, "Then what now?" Mrs. H, "We wait. They're coming." 4:41 p.m. They arrive, real footsteps, heavy boots, voices. "Clear. Hands up if you're in here." A key turned in the lock. The door opened, slowly, and flashlight beams hit our eyes. A SWAT officer stood in the doorway, real, armored, with a badge and a real rifle. Behind him, several more. "Everyone stay calm. You're safe now." We were sobbing, hugging, shaking. They let us out. 4:50 p.m. The hallways. What we saw in the halls still gives me nightmares. Blood smeared across lockers, scratch marks along the floor, the ceiling, shoes, backpacks, phones left behind, no bodies, no signs of struggle, just disappearance. In the main lobby, a door had been ripped off its hinges. Something had left, or tried to. 5 p.m. The official report. That night, the news said there was a security incident, a mentally unstable former student, no fatalities, lockdown successful. But we knew better. Connor never came back. Neither did Olivia. Or Derek. The closet was sealed off the next day. Room 207 was reassigned, and every year on that date, the fire alarm goes off at exactly 4:07 p.m., even if it's disconnected. I remember it like it was yesterday, even though it happened years ago. Scary experiences always have a way of sticking with you, etching themselves into your brain until you can recall every minute detail with crystal clarity. That's certainly the case with this particular incident. It was a normal day at school. I was in my math class, listening to the teacher drone on about quadratic equations. I remember feeling bored, wishing I could be anywhere else. My wish would soon be granted, but not in the way I wanted. Suddenly, the intercom crackled to life. I still remember the sound, the staticky buzz that filled the room and made everyone jump. The principal's voice came through, steady and calm, but with an undercurrent of urgency. "This is a lockdown," he said. "I repeat, this is a lockdown. All students and faculty are to remain in their classrooms until further notice. This is not a drill." My classmates and I exchanged worried glances. Lockdowns weren't uncommon at our school. We'd had a few in the past due to drug busts or suspected gang activity. But something in the principal's voice made us all feel uneasy. This was different. I won't bore you with the details of the initial lockdown. It was standard procedure. The teacher locked the door, we turned off the lights, and we all huddled in the corner. I remember how quiet it was, how still. All we could hear was our own breathing, the clock ticking on the wall. We waited. The principal finally came on the intercom and said the lockdown was over, so we went out of the classroom to our different classes we were supposed to go to. So after a while in my history class, I had to use the bathroom, so I raised my hand and asked to use the bathroom, and the teacher let me, so I was on my way to the bathroom. I didn't realize anything was amiss until I heard shouting from down the hall. At first, I thought it was just some kind of argument, but as I got closer, I could hear the fear in the voices. They were screaming, begging for help. And then I saw him. The man was tall, with shaggy hair and wild eyes. He was dressed in all black, which made him seem even more menacing. He was holding a gun. I don't know what kind. I'm not a gun guy. And waving it around like it was a toy. I remember my heart pounding in my chest, the way my palms got slick with sweat. I froze. I don't know why he noticed me. I was just a kid, small and unremarkable. Maybe I was in the wrong place at the wrong time. But he turned towards me, training his gun on my chest, and I felt like my legs were made of lead. I couldn't move. "Get over here," he growled. "Now." I didn't have a choice. I stumbled towards him, my hands raised in surrender. He grabbed my arm, yanked me close. I could smell the sweat on his skin, the gunpowder in the air. "Listen," he said, and his voice was surprisingly calm. "I'm not going to hurt you, but you're going to help me get out of here. Got it?" I nodded. my throat dry. I remember wondering where the hell the police were, why they weren't here to save us. I remember thinking that this was it. I was going to die, but it wasn't that simple. The man dragged me down the hall, through a stairwell, and into a dimly lit basement. There were other people down there, hostages, all of them scared and crying. He shoved me towards them, barked out orders. "Sit down, shut up, don't move." I did as I was told, huddling with the others in a corner. I don't think we spoke. We were too terrified. All we could do was listen as the man paced back and forth, muttering to himself. I heard him talking about a plan, about how he was going to get away. I don't remember the specifics. I was too busy trying to keep my breathing steady, trying not to hyperventilate. And then suddenly it was over. We heard shouting and the sound of running footsteps. The man swore, raised his gun. "Stay back," he warned. But it was too late. The police burst in, shouting orders. I remember a flash of movement, the sound of a gun being fired, and then the man was on the ground, surrounded by officers. It was over. I don't remember much after that. I think an ambulance came, took us all away. I remember seeing news cameras and journalists, the way the lights glared in my eyes. I remember being told I was lucky, that I'd survived, but it didn't feel lucky. It felt like a nightmare I couldn't wake up from. Years later, I still think about that day. I wonder what would have happened if I'd been a few minutes earlier or later, if I'd never needed to pee. I wonder what would have happened if the man had been more violent, more unhinged. I wonder how many other people have gone through something like this. How many more will in the future? But mostly, I'm just grateful to be alive. I'm very happy I'm not in school anymore. I graduated a few years ago, but more and more every day I hear about incidents at school. On the news, on the internet, on texts my friends send me. All sorts of horror stories. But the stories online are the ones I'm always finding myself glancing through. I've seen stories online of people relating how their school went into lockdown, and the story ends up being about some hobo who had been living under the school, or some crazy person from down the street who finally snapped one day. I don't know if they're true, but all I know is our school went into lockdown once. And I don't know if even the people at my school know the whole story as to what happened. I don't even know if I understand it myself. It still seems like some sort of fever dream, something that didn't happen, couldn't happen. It was the middle of third period, math. I had just finished a big test. I found out later I had made a bunch of mistakes and ended up getting a D, but that's not really important to the story. I used the hall pass to go use the bathroom. Unfortunately, the school bathrooms were all located at the stairwells, and of course the bathrooms on the first floor, where I was, were closed for repairs. I had to go up to the second floor, but before I got there, the bell rang. The bell never rang during class before, but as it did, an announcement came over the PA. "Students and faculty, we are entering lockdown. This is not a drill. Please, all students and faculty follow all school procedures." I froze. I could hear sirens approaching. I came out of the stairwell, but already the doors in the hallway were closing, and I could hear them locking. I was alone and out in the open. I could go into the bathroom now, but the doors had no locks on them since my freshman year. After some juniors trapped a freshman in the bathroom and duct taped him inside a stall, they removed the ability to lock them at all. If there was somebody wandering the school, I'd have no chance if I went into there. I ran down the hall. I could see classrooms turning out their lights and covering the windows. I couldn't turn to them for help. All the instructions said to not answer the door. I had to find someplace safe nearby, before something happened. I turned a corner, and I saw my chance. The janitor's closet was open. Lunch was up next period, so he was probably out setting up tables when the announcement was made. He wasn't in there, and it could easily be locked from the inside, so I jumped in and shut off the light. The only light I saw was from the bottom of the door. I waited, and the sirens grew closer and eventually stopped. Time passed, and I wasn't sure if I was happy that I couldn't hear anything going on or tense because I had no idea what was happening. Then I heard footsteps, lots of them. They stopped in the hallway. It must have been police. I could hear radios and other assorted noises. I didn't think it could be some sort of lone gunman or nutcase, so I listened. One guy in particular sounded like the one in charge. "Okay, are we in position?" Another guy answered. I didn't know what his rank was, but clearly he was not in charge of the first guy. "Yes, sir. We know the suspect is here in the building. C team is across the campus, as ordered, and B team is covering the back entrances. He will not exit the building on our watch." The chief responded. "Good. Remember, he could look like anyone. But he must not escape. It's my fault he's here, and it's my duty to deal with him." I couldn't hear much for a while. There was too much movement. Too many people all talking to each other to make out anybody from where I sat. I just waited for a little while. Maybe it would all just be over soon, and I could leave the closet and go back to class. Then, that's when it all happened. The chief yelled out, "Hold it! Put your hands in the air!" The commotion outside stopped abruptly. A moment later, clothes rustled loudly as what sounded like a large number of guns were drawn. "Lay down on the ground. Leave your hands where we can see them." It stayed quiet, except for a few of the guns cocking. I said down the ground, "Don't you dare try what I think you're going to do. You're not at the institute anymore." I thought I would hear shots go off, back and forth, and eventually somebody saying, "Suspect down." What I didn't expect was the scream. It wasn't a normal scream. It wasn't somebody crying out in terror. It was like a wounded animal mixed with the sound of a bandsaw hitting concrete. I've never heard anything like it before, and I hope I never hear it again. Then the guns began to fire. The horrible scream happened again, and then other screams, and then the sounds of tearing. I saw the shadows under the door as people moved and fell over, and heard the telltale splatter of gore as it soaked the floor. There was another gunshot, and I nearly yelled out myself when a bullet punched through part of the doorway. It wasn't very big, but I put my eye up against it, and I could see a group of people being attacked by somebody. But something wasn't right about him. He looked too long in places, like he'd been stretched in a taffy machine. He was moving so fast, though, that I couldn't make anything out, except for him grabbing people and throwing them around like they were nothing. There was blood everywhere. More gunshots. The scream happened again and again. I pulled away from the bullet hole and sat back in the closet. Then the scream began to fade. I heard a thud and then more footsteps. The chief spoke again, but he was breathing heavily, like he had been badly wounded. "Team A, he's down. I repeat, he's down. We need a cleanup immediately." I didn't move. I wanted to look again, but as curious as I was, I didn't really want to see, but I heard a lot of commotion for a long time. And then, nothing. I don't know how long it was after that. But then the PA announced the lockdown had ended. I came out of the closet. I tried not to look, but for all the sounds I had heard, there was not as much sign of a fight as I thought there would be. Even the blood I had seen in that brief time through the bullet hole had all been removed. I went back to my class, and just told everyone I had hid in a stall in the bathroom. People were impressed with my guts for doing it. But if nobody else had heard that scream, I certainly didn't want to bring it up. As you might expect, we all went home early that day. Police and EMT were everywhere, but as far as I could see, nobody was being taken away by either. My parents came and were so happy that I was all right. They had been following everything on the news and came as soon as they could. At home that night, I ate dinner and waited to see what happened on the news. The live coverage had ended a long time ago, but when the news came back on at 10 o'clock, I wanted to see everything. As it started, I saw classes had been canceled for the rest of the week, but then things started to get weird. The news talked about a student who they refused to name, how he had come to school armed but had been taken into custody after a short firefight. Stranger still, in the footage of the hallway where the scuffle had taken place, the door of the closest, which had been my refuge, was totally unscathed. Not so much as a scratch on it, let alone bullet holes. It appeared to have been replaced outright, well before any investigation could have been completed. I saw pictures of the student being led away in cuffs. He didn't have a mark on him. He wasn't even wounded as he was pushed into a police car and driven away. All I saw was him fighting and yelling. Even in my glimpses through that bullet hole, I knew that wasn't the same one I saw. The clothes were completely different. The one I had seen had been wearing a black t-shirt and jeans. The one getting into the police car was wearing a white shirt and shorts. The news said no one had been hurt despite the gunfire, but I knew people had been wounded, even killed. I'd heard them screaming in agony as something vicious had attacked them. And then there was what that chief guy had said, talking about something being his fault, the institution, that he could look like anyone. I don't know what happened that day for certain. I didn't see enough. I didn't hear enough to get the full story. But this is what I can tell you. I know there was no shooter at our school. I know that someone was arrested that day. Someone who I didn't know, who I never heard about ever again. That's right. A shooter who never made another day's worth of news. Just disappeared. When was the last time that ever happened? I know that chief guy and his squads were not cops. I don't know who they were, but I know cops don't clean up a crime scene like that, and no human being has ever screamed like that. Ever. But whatever it was that I heard attacking those people, all I know is it came into that hallway where I was. I was alone, and if it hadn't been for that janitor's closet, I wouldn't have been safe. It could have looked like anyone. Something tells me that squad wouldn't have helped me either. It could have looked like anyone. What was it? How long had it been in our school? Had I ever been alone with it and never knew what it was? Who were those people who had come for it? Where had it come from? And good God, is it really dead?